Hello, this is Mike at Gamefromscratch. Today we're going to be taking a look at MonoGame, specifically getting it up and running on a macOS computer. We're going to walk through the installation process, make sure that everything is up and running, configured right, create our first project, and take a quick look at the content pipeline. Basically, we just want to make sure that everything works, and then we can continue on further with some coding tutorials after the fact. In case you've never heard of it, MonoGame started life as an open source port of Microsoft's XNA game libraries. XNA was intended as sort of an indie-focused game library for creating games on uh, Xbox 360, Windows XP and higher, as well as Windows Phone. It shipped with a special version of Visual Studio called XNA Game Studio, and it allowed you to import assets and create your game all in one piece. Up until recently, XNA MonoGame sort of lagged behind because it didn't have that content piece. You still needed to have the Visual Studio build tools to create your content in. Fortunately, somewhat recently, they've added their own content pipeline, which is a huge development in this area. So today we're going to look at all the process of getting up and going. Now I have to apologize right up front. I don't generally record on Mac. This is pretty much my first recording. And sadly, I can't get my mic to work, so I'm using the built-in microphone. I'm also not filming this at the native resolution of 1080p. So when it is upsampled, it might look a little awful. So if this looks awful and sounds awful, that's why. Hopefully in the future, I'll get it hooked up to an external monitor at the native resolution and recording with my proper microphone. So in the meantime, I apologize if the audio and video quality is a little bit lacking. In the future, that should go away. So let's jump on right in. First thing, I'm not going to cover the installation process. Each one is pretty much just a double-click, next, next, next kind of installer. If something goes wrong, it was an exceptional problem, and I can't help you anyways. Like literally, there are no options in the install. You literally just go next, 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 or continue, continue, continue. However, the order that you install these things is critically important. So let's go through that first. There's three things you're going to want to go ahead and download. They're all downloaded installers, so you can download them all now. Just make sure that you install them in the right order. And the very first thing we obviously need is Mono. Mono is the cross-platform version of the .NET libraries, or you can think of it as Mono is C#. But Mono is also the libraries that go along with C# or F# or the other languages. It is the thing that basically allows you to run any of this code in the first place. It's sort of like the Java VM is to Java, Mono is to C#. And you need the runtime installed. You can grab it from www.mono-project.com/download and just come on in and grab the MDK, whichever the current version is. As of recording, it is 4.0.1.44, but again, just grab whatever's the newest. They've done a good job of making different versions work together, so as long as you've got the newest one, you should always be pretty much good. The next thing you're going to want, and this is somewhat optional, but on anything but Windows, I highly recommend everybody grab it, and that's the Xamarin platform, specifically Xamarin Studio. That is a Mono-based IDE, and if you install this first, before you install MonoGame, you'll get a bunch of templates that make life easier for you to work with. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't. If you want to work from a command line, you can. It's totally your option. The content pipeline tool is a third-party, it's a standalone thing. You do not need Xamarin Studio to use it, but especially when you're just getting started, Xamarin will make your life a lot easier. On top of that, it also ships with libraries that enable you to target Android, Mac, and iOS. Very handy stuff, of course. And there's a commercial price tag attached to a lot of this, especially iOS and Android, but that's a topic for a different day. I highly recommend you grab Xamarin Studio. The rest of this particular tutorial and all tutorials after are going to assume you're using Xamarin Studio when running on Mac. So I would go ahead and grab this. And then finally, you're going to want to go ahead and get MonoGame. As of recording, the most recent version of MonoGame is 3.4. However, if you were the bold type, you can grab the development build. Just come down here and grab MonoGame for Mac. But chances are you want MonoGame 3.4. MonoGame is available at monogame.net/downloads. And just come on and grab the most recent version, and you want to download MonoGame 3.4 for macOS. This can be a bit of a point of confusion. There's also a MonoGame 3.4 pipeline GUI tool for macOS. This is included in this. So if you use this link, you do not need this guy. So download all three of those files, and once you got them, it should look somewhat like this. So make sure you install first the Mono framework, then Xamarin Studio, and then finally MonoGame. And again, I'm not going to walk through the install process because there's nothing to it. When you're done, you should have Xamarin Studio installed like so. Let's go ahead and run mail. Oops. Let's get that out of the way. Let's try this again. Load that up. All right. So here we are. Welcome to Xamarin Studio. We're going to make our very first MonoGame project. Just click New Solution, and then come on down here and select Miscellaneous, like so. And you'll see, as long as you installed it in the right order, you should have all of these templates installed. Now, there's a bunch of options here. You can create a shared project, which is a good way to go. If you're creating a game that's cross-platform, you put as much of the platform-agnostic code into a shared project or into a library, and then just put your native-only stuff in the platform-specific stuff. But as you see, there's projects here for an Android, an Ouya, an iPad, and then two types of Mac applications. The open-source MonoMac implementation of the, think of that as the .NET framework to macOS libraries translation layer. But instead we're going to use the Xamarin.Mac one, the Xamarin provided ones. And let's just go ahead. So we're just going to create a Mac native application just to keep life super simple. Don't worry about cross-platform yet. Get it working on one platform to start with. So just grab this guy and then click Next. And I want to put this in my mono folder. We shall call this Hello MonoGame. And we're going to create a project and a solution. You don't have to, your call. That's a check. And you can also set it for using Git version control or not. It's a throwaway project for me, so I'm not going to. And then just go ahead and click Create. Now, we're not going to cover any of the code stuff. We're just going to make sure that you're up and running. So it's going to create this default project for you. And all this is going to do is, so long as your setup is up and going, this will pop up and create a full screen cornflower blue window. And let's make sure it works. There you go. Perfect. And then just hit escape when you're done. So there, congratulations. You just created your first successful XNA app on macOS. And as again, we'll get into the code later on. I just finally want to talk very quickly and make sure that it's working for you, the content pipeline. This is somewhat the new functionality, and now you can do this on any platform, which is a great development. So come on into content here, and you'll see you've got this file called content.mgcb. Just double-click that, and it will load up the content pipeline tool. A quick overview of how you use this guy. Then click to the root of our content folder, and I'm going to bring something in. Just go Edit, Add, Existing Item, and then I'm just going to bring in a PNG file off my desktop. So crayon.png. And we'll copy it into our folder, like so. So that's it. That's bringing a texture type file into your project. There's a number of different files supported. I'll show you that in a second. Let's just expand this window out. I'll show you some of the settings we've got. So with our Canyon or Crayon PNG file added, if you select it, you come down here and you see some of the properties for it. It automatically figured out its type. It knows it's the texture that it's importing. So it brings in uses the texture importer for you. You can get an idea for the other kinds of files that are supported. So FBX for your 3D, fonts, different video formats, different audio formats, etc. So like I said, it automatically figured out what we're dealing with the texture importer. And then as a result, you've got a couple of specific settings. So here, you can automatically have it resize your texture to a power of 2 if you wish. You can set the color key or the transparency or chroma key in the background. You can have it make mid-maps for you or not. Or you can have it come here, and you can have a texture to have it compressed or not. So for each individual asset, those options will depend on the type of processor it's using, but those are the ones particularly for a texture. There's a bunch of things you can have it do on part of the input process. Now, different platforms have different requirements on their assets, and that's why you have this this layer in between. And the XMB file is a binary optimized file that XNA is familiar with. And then finally, at our content level at the top here, you'll see you have two options that are very key. Output directory is where this is going to be generated. So right now we're in the content folder, and you see it up here if I expanded that out. And then in the subfolder bin, and then the platform name, which in this case is going to be macOS, it's going to go ahead and create this particular content when we build it. Now, as you see here under platform, we can pick which platform we're building this content for. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click macOS X like so. And then finally, when we're done, we're going to do a build. It's going to ask me to save, and I'm going to say yes. And then now it's grabbing that thing, it's compressing it because I asked for that, and saving it. So now if we go back to our folder here, let's say project mono, we'll see our content folder, and then underneath bin MacOSX, and there's our imported file as crayon.xmb. So now we can come back into our project, our platform-specific project. We can actually import that asset, the macOSX version of it, as a link into our project. So we just come in here and go add, and then go add files, and then bin, macOS, crayon, and then we're going to add it as a link, like so. So now we have this file right here. I'm not going to get too much into the code, but I'm going to show you exactly how you would use this at this point. Now, there is one critical aspect. Once you brought in a file, once you brought this an XMB file in, you have to do one last step, and that's right-click on it and set its build action as content. So that way, it knows what it is. And then finally, so now we have this content included in our contents folder. Let's look at quickly using it in code. You have this this method called load content, which guess what? That's where you load your content. And we shall this dot content dot load, and then you pass in the templated type, which in this case is a texture 2D, like so, and then load, and then case sensitive, no extension, like that. And that will load that texture in. I guess we should. Like so. And I run that. It's not going to be exceed. No, geez. I switch languages too often. Excuse me. Here, let's just go ahead and actually give it its type. So, method group, blah, blah, blah. Why are you getting upset at me? Content.load, that type. Oh, Jesus. Why do I have two loads? I think we had a code completion fart there. I might have had a brain fart. One of those two things. Now that that's done, load that up. Now, I'm not actually doing anything with said texture. Actually, in fact, I'm not even keeping it. It's a local, so it's going to go out of scope, like right there. But that is the process of loading an asset from the content pipeline into your game. Now, we're going to cover the code stuff very much later on. So I just want to show you how you can get macOS up and running and ready for mono game development. And if you followed along to this point and everything worked the same as I've got it here, you are ready to go. So we'll continue on shortly for some code specific things. I'm also going to follow up with a video for doing the same thing on Windows, and then we'll be ready to continue. So don't get too caught up in the details or what you see on screen or the code. Don't let any of that scare you off. We will cover that, no problem going forward. So just want to make sure that you're up and running fine, and that is the process. So hope you enjoyed that. See you soon.